get an email from me probably this afternoon when it'll have a recording of our session linked in there, and it'll also have our feedback form in there as well. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, so getting into the actual content, Carol Ann Tomlinson said, teachers in the most exciting and effective differentiated classrooms don't have all the answers. What they do have is optimism and determination. And teachers, right now, we are 141 strong in this session, and none of us have all the answers. But what we do have, it's a Tuesday morning in early August, and you are here because you think that you can do something different to be able to better serve our students right now. So that is an optimism, and to me that's also displaying a determination that we might be able to do this a little bit better, a little bit differently. And so I honestly thank you for being that committed to our learners. I have, as you saw before, I have 2 boys at home, and I'm excited to know that their teachers are as invested as you are, and that they're going to continue to find ways to meet our learners' needs that are different now than they were a year ago. So thank you. Now, I want to kick things off by really looking at what are these different areas that we'll get into during the session. The first is a very quick overview of these different terms, choice boards, hyperdocs, and so forth, looking at some definitions of what these mean. Then we're going to move into choice boards and seeing some examples, lots of templates in there, continuing to hyperdocs, and then finally we'll have a chance for you to reflect and ask some questions as well. Okay, so a choice board, and this will be a little bit of me reading, but I promise most of the session will be you exploring, okay? Some people refer to these as learning menus, and really to me those are pretty synonymous. And with these, they are emphasizing differentiation when it comes to the content that our students are accessing, the types of processes that they're doing, and the products that come at the end. So we really want our students to be able to engage with the same ideas, but in a variety of ways, right? So we can have a podcast where they learn about a concept. We can have an article for that same concept, or a learning game, all of it building where our students are thinking through this information and then making some sort of artifact that shows, here's what I know. So it is allowing our students the opportunity to do all of them if they need to, or maybe they only pick one of these content pieces that they need in order to have that level of understanding or mastery. The next is our students are choosing how they engage with the content. Choice boards started in a physical format. I can definitely remember having a printed copy of some of these when I was in school, but now they are largely enhanced by technology. And to really get the most out of what we're trying to do with serving our kids in this time, we will really heavily rely upon how we can use some tech in this. And finally, choice boards honor and value our students' gifts, interests, and personality. Thinking about my 7-year-old, he certainly has a lot of strong interests, and we need to do our best to foster that. So if he's interested in writing songs or doing rhyming right now, how can we allow him to show his knowledge by building upon that, right? Okay, so the next, hyperdocs. And I get really excited about this slide, and that's really geeky, I know that, but the idea that these are student-centered learning plans just makes me really excited. And I'll confess that when I was a classroom teacher, I made lesson plans. I was the focus of any planning that I did. What am I doing? And then my students responded to my actions, right? But a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago or so, I started a shift where I started thinking through, what are my students doing? What is they become the main focal point of all of my planning. So it became a learning plan instead of a lesson plan. And I know that there's some level of semantics, but it's also mindset. Who am I designing for? I'm designing for my students, and what is their learning experience? Now for me, it becomes very easy with either a choice board or hyperdoc, especially when we're doing distance learning, for everything to be individualized, right? Where my student's only interacting with his own thoughts or her own thoughts, but we need to mix in some of those individual times, some small group, and some full class artifacts that represent what the learning looks like in our class. And then the final thing about hyperdocs, they are based, a lot of the templates we're going to look at are based on established lesson plan structures that researchers have cultivated, put together, and have suggested this is a good flow for a student's learning that we can build upon. And this final piece was really a big key for me to start viewing Hyperdocs as something more than just a Google Doc with a bunch of links on it, and start to thinking about it in terms of, oh, this is really a learning plan that I could use with the adult learners I support or the student learners that they support. Okay, so slide 10, I have a link on here. So if you have your slides pulled up, now would be a good time to open those up. So you may have to hit escape on your computer to be able to get back to your own resources. And then we're going to click where it says Planning Doc. So this is a resource that I got from some of the Hyperdoc folks, and I really like it because it focuses not on what are the cool templates we're about to see, and you will again see some amazing aesthetically inspiring different lesson plan, learning plan templates, but it really we need to start with what is the objective. So being able to define what is the standard that we're trying to address or objective we're trying to address, what is the learning outcome that we want them to be able to do, how long are we going to give them for this activity. You know, sometimes we might do a Hyperdoc or a choice board and it's only a 20-minute experience. Sometimes it might be the foundation piece for an entire unit or maybe even an entire quarter, right? So we can really be flexible with how we use these different packaging or different resources in here. Okay, so again, we have this, it's available to you. When you get to this page that I'm on, you'll see that blue Use Template button in the top right-hand corner. If you click on that, it's going to save a copy in your Google Drive that you can go back to. And I'm sure that with a lot of the resources we're looking at today, you'll be using that Use Template button quite a bit to make sure that you have a copy you can get back to in the future. All right. So continuing on, we're going to move into our choice boards now. And there's a short video that I like to show that really helps to describe how we can use choice boards and what they are. So I'm going to get that going in just 1 second. And we'll go ahead and watch it, and then we'll have a chance to debrief afterwards.
I'm Martine Brown.
And I'm Tyra Clayton.
And today we're going to talk to you about digital choice boards.
Digital choice boards, they allow students to choose an activity or activities that will complete for an assignment or to demonstrate understanding. Digital choice boards, students can choose activities that can be described or hyperlinked. You can consider telling students to complete activities in a row, or you can also have a column. It just depends on your students. Each column or row on digital choice board can be focused on a particular skill or standard.
When we take a look at an example like the one listed, you can organize your choice board into a 9-square model and 3 in a row. Teachers can choose what they want to differentiate. For examples, you can differentiate what students will produce, like this example, where students can produce different types of creations, or how students will engage with different learning styles, which level of complexity students are ready for, or which activities appeals to the students' interests. For a copy of this Show What You Know link or the template,
All right, so I know that was a short video, but I would love if a few of you would be able to unmute your microphone and tell us what takeaways you had from this introduction to a choice board.
Coming from the area of special education, just the fact that you can differentiate would be like really helpful because you have all different levels, especially in self-contained classes.
definitely important that we differentiate for our special ed classes and all of our students. Awesome, thank you, Alma. Anyone else want to share?
I just like having the option of providing students with choice, as you indicated, choice boards. And so I work for RPS, and I had an activity similar to what's up here, but I want to see what you have, which I think your stuff is going to go over the top. But I was able to create some choice boards, but but I really just used Kahoot. So I didn't have a lot of options like the young lady was speaking a few seconds ago, but I'm just eager to see what you have, and I just know I'll be able to implement that going forward.
Awesome, thank you, Rosa. And you're right, some of these examples are over the top. There's a lot that's coming your way. I do want to encourage you, and this will be kind of a point that we keep coming back to, keep it simple when we start, okay? Remember, our main thing is the learning outcome for our students, not that it's the prettiest whatever, right? So there are amazing templates we can use and adapt. We're gonna see lesson plans that are already built and Hyperdocs are already built. Find some of those that we can make small tweaks to, and don't feel the need to completely become a graphic designer. That's not our goal. We want to be the instructional designer, and we can use these tools to help leverage that. So I hope that really comes through. There is a reason that I started with this video. I love that it's the bingo. And I also have heard it called just a tic-tac-toe board with that 3x3 grid. So if you go to slide 13 with me, we'll see that we have a link in here to be able to get a copy of this resource on the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and click where it says, where we have the picture of the tic-tac-toe choice menu on slide 13. Again, when we click on that, it's going to open up and give us the option to use template. And I'd like you to please click on the use template button. And again, this will save it into your Google Drive so that a couple weeks from now or later this week, you can go in and continue working on it. So this is coming from a website that I really like called Shake Up Learning, and some really cool resources come out of that site, and I have it linked, I think, on the next slide as well. But I'd like to just quickly talk about this choice menu. And I like people to start here because, look, we're making 9 different choices. Some of these other menus that we're going to see offer way more than that. But again, we want to keep it simple for both you and our students when we're getting started. So as we look at this choice menu, our directions say start with number 5 and then make 2 other choices to make your tic-tac-toe. So with the way that it's written right now, everybody's starting here. But I've also worked with people where number 5, that center box, is your ending point. So really think about how you want to anchor. Do you want people to have the common experience as you initiate this activity, or do you want a common place at the end where people can reflect, maybe they can share their artifacts, whatever it might be. So 5, if you're thinking about it being a starting point, a Kahoot might be a really cool way to start things off, and you kind of get that baseline knowledge that you can maybe return to again later and be able to see what that growth was. Or maybe do a pre-assessment again with a Kahoot or a form where you know, here's where we're at, I need to help support these areas. Something else that we can see, notice that because we have that anchor point with box 5, we have to get both one of these bluish green and one of these yellow, right? We can't not get one of each of those. So I've worked with some people where they made the bluish green be, this might be the content differentiation where they can choose how they want to interact with the information at the beginning. And then the 6, 7, 8, 9 could be, here is the artifact differentiation, and they get a choice at that point, how they display what they've learned. Some other things that I've heard is that this could be an easier level, and then this could be a more challenging piece after they've done this initial step. But the idea that I really like, especially with what we're doing now, is that we have one of these parts where it's instructional content. And then we have one of these down below that is more focused on community or focused on those social emotional pieces that we really need to focus on, as so many of us will be in remote or hybrid learning in a couple weeks, or whenever you start classes. So a lot of different ways that we can build out and organize with this two-colored system, and then having that anchor with number 5. Some other things that we can do, and this is just a very quick introduction to how we would edit and customize. As we start to build, we might go to box 1. We're clicking in here. We can, of course, type. So maybe it's head to News Ella and read the linked article. So with that, I can highlight any of my words and click up here where I see the link icon. Kind of looks like a chain, piece of chain. And when I get there, find the type in the link that I want them to go to, or copy and paste it in, and now they can click directly on it and it'll go there. I know within the video that we watched, they also used images to help as that cue. So if instead of writing some text out, I wanted to add in an image as well, I can go up to insert image, or this image icon here, search the web and find what I'm looking for. So maybe I'm doing an article on social justice, and I can find a picture that represents that. My son and I started reading March by John Lewis yesterday, so we'll put that in here and find something. Okay. So we found an article about John Lewis, and we're able to drop in a picture of him as well to help to be that foundation for our students. So over time, we'd go in, add for each of these boxes so that we really had all 9 of those and be able to build it out. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to invite you. You can leave this tab open for your tic-tac-toe menu choice board. Please remember that if you hit that use template button, it is saved in your drive, so you can always get back to it. But at this point, I'm going to head back to our slides, and we're going to move into our exploration time, which is my favorite time. Okay, so on slide 14, 15, and 16, I'm going to front load, give you some directions, and then you'll have about 5 minutes to explore. So on slide 14, 15, and 16, I have a lot of resources linked in here, okay? So most of these images that you see are links. If you click on them, it's gonna open up and allow you to make a copy or at least see that, that resource. And what I'd like you to do is really just explore. If you want to dive deep into 1 or 2, that's fine. If you want to click on every single thing that you see, it's your time, okay? Please do something that is valuable to you. And then after you've had that chance to explore these, we're going to come together on slide 17 in about 5 minutes, so around 9:30. And I have a Padlet. And this is where we can go and reflect afterwards. So this is going to be our group coming back together after having exploration time and being able to have a discussion. Can I have someone who can unmute their mic and summarize how we're spending the next 5 minutes or so?
We're spending the next 5 minutes exploring the slides and the materials that's there.
Awesome. Thank you. That's exactly right. So at this point, you can go ahead and start clicking around. If you have questions, you can unmute your mic and ask. That's certainly fine. And at 9:30, we'll come back together and move towards the Padlet. Go. please keep exploring. We have about another minute or so, and then we'll come back together. All right, so we'll come back together at this point and head to slide 17, where we'll have a chance to kind of debrief on what we explored. I love the chat looking through there. So on slide 17, most of it is links. So if you click where it says check and connect, it's going to open up in a tool called Padlet. And this is a very easy way that we can have discussions going. And on here, please go ahead and respond to our 3 different prompts that we have at the top of the screen. So the first being what inspired you or your aha moments as you're looking through there. The next will be what were your favorite templates that you found? And finally, what are some non-academic ideas that you might want to include in this? So I know that there are a few of the resources that looked at being active or connecting to art or your family and some things along those lines. So go ahead and contribute to this, and we'll come back together in a few moments to debrief.
How long does it take to cook one of these? Lit microwave. Save dish in what? Yeah, I don't understand this. Can you please?
All right, so I know that some of us are still adding ideas in here, and I love that. What I'd like to happen real quick is, can I hear from maybe 2 or 3 people who'd like to share out on what you found, or maybe someone else's comment on here really resonated with you. But again, let's take a couple moments to hear from some of you about those experiences.
Well, one thing I had already worked on was the Bitmoji classroom, and I really took as much care doing it as I would set up my classroom. And I teach social studies, and so even I have a globe there, and it has a link to like an American history atlas. And I'm just finding, especially going back and looking at the choice board and the slide mania, how in touch we can really be with our kids. And that was very hard for me last year, finishing up the year. And I'm kind of excited about what all our options are going to be this year. And so this is really cool stuff.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it, Julia. Yeah, I love the idea of the building your virtual classroom. And my wife is a 3rd grade teacher, and yesterday in the mail she got some bulletin board making ribbon or whatever it might be, border. And she also found out that she's going to be teaching all virtual this year. So being able to think, how do we shift to be able to cultivate what represents my learning space in an online platform? And I love how far ahead you seem to be with it, and that you're looking at it as an opportunity and not something that may be detrimental. So that's a great mindset to have. Thank you. Let's hear from maybe one or two other people.
Hi, my name is Heather, and on slide 15, I really liked seeing the visual about no tech, low tech, high tech, because I teach in Goochland, and we have a great disparity on internet, and it's not reliable for a large portion of our community and for teachers. So we really need to be mindful that what we put out there for our students and families is not all tech based, because they don't all have it. And they also don't all have the background to necessarily work with all that technology until they've been taught. So I really appreciated that visual of making sure we include all levels of products for our students and families.
Thank you, Heather. And I love the compassion with your insight there. I also know that for myself, sometimes I just prefer a no tech option, and I'm like a tech guy, right? So John and Eric can attest that when I'm in a meeting, my computer's down, my laptop's away, and I have a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm taking notes that way, because I just prefer not being distracted and being able to focus on the information. And I know a lot of our students will feel that way too, especially if so much of their learning is done through, video calls and things like that. They may need to just disconnect for a little bit. And I think that having this set up really honors that. Thank you. Let's hear from maybe one other person.
Can I?
Go ahead, Armin.
Yeah. I like Bitmoji, but I am going back to that slide also, number 15. I like that part. It says no tech, low tech, high tech. So I just like to add something there. It's not just the availability of technology, but I also have to see the level of skills of my students. So this is something I want to add in terms
That's
of
awesome. Yeah. So being, fully aware of what their skills as well, and that goes back to that differentiation part. How do we meet them where they're at? How do we help to build them to a level that will help them engage with the content and material this year? Thank you. All right, so we will come back to the Padlet in just a little bit after we've explored our Hyperdocs as well. Hey, Miles, please don't try to staple a rock. Thank you. Love you. Okay. So you can leave that tab open, and we'll come back to it again in probably like 10 or so minutes. So I'm going to head back to our slides. You can follow by watching my screen, or if you want to head back to your own copy, you can do that too. And now we're going to do that transition to Hyperdocs. On slide 20, we have 3 different templates that I routinely use when I'm building Hyperdocs out. And just a little bit about Hyperdocs. First, they were developed by a team of 3 women from the Bay Area. And these teachers, these educators they're great. I've gotten to meet, I think, 2 of the 3, and they were the ones who sat down and explained how I was using Hyperdocs wrong. And I love that moment of, oh yeah, I definitely am. I have the wrong mindset about this. I need to shift my thinking. And that was a big aha moment. I love the templates that they have in here for different lesson plan formats. I'd like everyone to click on this first one on slide 20, Explore, Explain, Apply. And as we saw with our previous templates that we saw, we have that Use Template button in the top right corner. And let's go ahead and click on that so that it adds this template to our Google Drive. And in a moment, when it opens and refreshes, we'll see that we have a very easy 3-step process for making a Hyperdoc. Okay. So the first one, I don't know why it's taking so long, but I can still talk through it as it is loading. We want our students to explore some content. So think of this as, what is your engagement or bell ringer activity? But now that we might be in distance learning, it might be more of a challenge to do a traditional bell ringer. So we can put that in here. So in the cell, it's suggesting to put links, images, videos, or articles that they can go out and explore independently and get some of that background knowledge. And then after they've gone and done that exploration, then on the right-hand side, we put in, well, what do we want them to do? So maybe they respond to a couple questions that we have. Maybe it's going to a Padlet wall where they can say, here are the things that I used to think, and maybe we can build like kind of a KWL structure in there. But we can start to build that out here. The next level down is explain. So this is where we really put the majority of the content that our students are looking at. And, you know, we can think of this also as the process part. So they're getting more options. Maybe we give them 2 or 3 different ways that they can really dive deep with the content. And then again, what is their task? What are they doing with it? How are they processing, thinking through what this information might be? This, you know, possibly could be an independent part, whereas the explore at the beginning was they are reflecting together. And then finally, what is their application? What are the artifacts going to be for our students? And just because in here we only have one box does not mean that you can't give them multiple choices about what these artifacts could be or how they can demonstrate. So then on the right-hand side, if you had things like a rubric that would go with it, or how you want them to turn the work in. I know a lot of you were probably in the Google Classroom session yesterday. That would be a really great way to pass out a Hyperdoc and then also be able to collect their materials at the end. And again, I don't know why it's taking so long to load, but know that you can always go back to that link, and maybe when we don't have 150 people all trying to make a copy at the same time, it might move a little bit faster. Okay, so at this point, I'm heading back to our slides, and we'll keep taking a look at some of these other options in here. So the next one is really the one I use the most of the time. I love the hero's journey, the layout for it. And I have 2 models that I've made using that template. The first is personalized learning. The second is looking at learning plans and how we can construct them. When we look at these, and I clicked on the personalized learning one, I do want to highlight a couple things, and these were delivered in person, so that might be a little bit different than how your students will engage with it coming up. But this first activity that we have is something that they are physically doing. Okay, so they're opening up envelopes, have different strips of paper, each with different definitions of personalized learning, and they are sorting it. So you get that tactile response. They're moving things around. They're having group discussion about how you might organize this information. Now you could kind of replicate this even in distance by linking to, maybe you have slides with a bunch of shapes with the words on it, or different text boxes, and collectively they could again go and sort and have that conversation. So it really is, how can we augment what our students are doing if we are doing it in distance learning. As we continue down, I give my students lots of, hey Miles, can you go to a different room, please? Thank you. I give my students lots of different resources as they go through here, and they're all kind of categorized. But then I also give them an opportunity to reflect. So not only do they have a place for their own notes, but then I have guiding questions for them to respond to as well. Now, the important thing in here, or an important thing, I say work in any order that you'd like. So I'm giving them, I'm honoring the teachers I'm working with, the learners I'm working with, giving them the choice to kind of explore what are those interests within this overarching concept that we're exploring. And they can do all of them. They can maybe do 2 or 3, and it's really up to them how they want to get to this end place of being able to demonstrate their understanding of this concept. And for this, I brought everyone back together by, they would link their artifacts on a Padlet wall. The final example, the final template that we're going to all explore is the Hyperdoc format. So with the Hyperdoc format, the 3 Hyperdoc ladies, that's how they refer to themselves, synthesized maybe 5 or 6 different lesson plan formats or learning plan formats, and noticed they're all kind of saying the same thing. They might use different terminology. How might we put them all together, find the best parts of all of them, and make one template, make one format? And so that's what they did here, the basic Hyperdoc lesson plan format. And I like it most of the time when I build professional development for teachers. I use something called the 5E lesson plan structure. And I like that the basic Hyperdoc one has a lot of those same pieces in it. So it starts off with 3 of our E's, then we get into apply, share. I like that there's a piece built in for reflection here as well. And that also sharing is thinking, how might we get this out to a larger audience? So are we going to leverage social media? Are we putting it on our students' portfolios? How are we going to get it to more people so that we can get some feedback from them? And it goes all the way to extension as well. So really cool. I love how they set this up. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna go to slide 21, and kind of similar to what we did with our choice boards, we have a lot of resources linked here. Now, I know that we only see 3 links, and we're gonna focus on these first 2. But when we click where it says templates, it's going to Hyperdocs website. And on here, on the left-hand side, we have all the different learning plan, lesson plan templates, some more than what we saw before. And on the left-hand side, it's a blank copy of the template. And on the right-hand side, it's a model that has a lesson already in there. So if we look at the explore, explain, apply that we've already looked at, then we go over to the right, we see the sample, we can click that link, and in here, it's gonna see it in practice. So that's the way that these next couple of resources are gonna work. I do want to draw your attention to, unlike everything that's linked in my presentation, if you are going to these examples and these samples from Hyperdocs site, you will need to do a slightly different process to add them to your Google Drive. So we're gonna click File, then Make a Copy. And this is a really important step. So what I need you to do, if we just hit OK right now, it's saving it in the Hyperdoc folder, which you don't have access to moving forward. So what we'd want to do is click where it says folder, and then we're going to click the back arrow and make sure that we're selecting My Drive, so that anything that we make a copy of is going to be saved in my Google Drive and not in the Hyperdocs Google Drive. Okay, so again, when we find the resource we want, we're going to File, Make a Copy, click where it has the folder name, hit the back arrow, select My Drive, and it will save it there. The other resource that I have linked on this are the lessons. And when we click on lessons and that link, it's organized by subject area. And so with this, I can click science, and it's going to open up a Google Drive folder where I can go through and find some resources, some lessons that are already built out that I might be able to use. So in here, if I need explore, explain, apply about volcanoes, I can double click this option, be able to add it to my drive, adapt it as I need to, and I can start using it with my kiddos. At this point, it's 9:47. I'm gonna give you till 9:50 to explore. And then just as we did before, we'll go back to that Padlet and be able to debrief on what we saw. So go ahead, explore, find as many great things as you can, and then we will come back together. Let's take another minute or so, and then we'll come back together.
Hey, Dad.
All right, so let's come back together and head to slide 22. If you have the Padlet already, if you have that tab already opened, you can just click on it. And as we did before, we want to go back and respond to those same three choices, same three areas. And at this point, we'll take a minute or so to reflect, and then we'll come back together and hear from a couple of our classmates. I see a good conversation going through the chat. I agree with a lot of you that you probably have been doing a lot of this and haven't had the title Hyperdoc attached to it. And that's how I felt too. I do like the transition from thinking about resources as a like just a list of different links or activities and really starting to attach it to here are some established learning plan or lesson plan templates that we can build around as well. And it can kind of be that combination of resources and digital links married with the instructional alignment that we can really see some value in there. All right, so I'd love to hear from one or two people about what your experience was looking through here, or any other reflections that you have at this point. So go ahead and unmute if you'd like to respond.
I think this is going to really benefit maybe some non-core content teachers like health and PE, music, or art, because usually they're seeing a lot more students throughout their days. And instead of having a big task like creating different classrooms for them, you can create this document and have it very easy to follow along for big groups of students.
That's awesome. Thank you, Nathan.
Got it.
Okay, anyone else?
Wow. Yes. For math.
Okay, so I love the, a lot of people are saying that they want to use this for community building. And
Oh, it's so good.
we go back to, and I'm going to remute us all.
I love that.
If we go back to where it says lessons on slide 21, notice that one of the options in here is community building and also start of the year. So I would probably take a look there. I know that there's a lot of encouragement right now that people spend the first even 7 days only focusing on community and not thinking about instructional materials at all, and how important community is right now. So in here we can see that here's an example of that building classroom community lesson, and then we also have started the school year, and I'm wondering if this is just a single resource that you might be able to adapt and use as well. Cool stuff. Oh, cool. So that's from Lisa. Right on. All right. So we're going to come back together and continue looking through on slide 23. really think through how we can build community into our activity. So in our session today, we use Padlet, and we're able to come together. Everybody has the opportunity to respond and see each other. So we have that equity of voice piece to it. And then we also invited people to share out loud and reflect out loud. So that's a great way that we can have a common place where people can think and reflect together. We also have Flipgrid, which is an amazing tool. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I'll be teaching on Flipgrid. So that's another way that we can have everybody come to a common place, reflect, showcase what their artifacts of learning would be, and be able to see one another. We can use Google Slides. So that's a common one for me. I like to give everybody a link where anyone who clicks on it is able to edit, and then they can come in and contribute ideas in here, or it could just be a check-in, however you want to leverage that with your kiddos. And then finally, I know almost all of us are using Google Classroom, or our district is using a learning management system, and probably all of those have a discussion feature built into it. So being able to, here's a topic, our students are able to go in and respond, and again, we're having some level of community with all that too. Okay, so as we move into our wrap up, I know I've said this at least once before, but please keep it simple. We saw some very extravagant and maybe even over the top choice board templates and Hyperdoc lessons that are already built. Find the appropriate, now we're differentiating for you, find what is appropriate for your comfort with these concepts and with technology, and start from there. You know, if that's giving your students just 3 options, then that's more options, more choice than what they may have had previously. So really find what that entry point is for you. Use a template that's already created. Use a lesson from Hyperdocs that's already created, and adapt it to meet your students' needs. You may not need to make many changes. It might get you pretty far from what's already out there. We don't really have time for the challenge right now, but as we saw before, here are the 2 simplest of the resources that we looked at, and there's a reason that we spent the most time on those. These are the entry points for a lot of people, and they're perfect for that. So as we start to introduce these ideas to your students, and we give them choice for the first time, you know, maybe you kick things off with that tic-tac-toe board, and then as the school year progresses and they become more comfortable with it, you bring in the Hyperdoc for the first time, and you know, you start to add more options for how you can deliver content to your kiddos. So at this point, we will get some time at the very end to ask some questions, but I do want to thank our moderators, John and Eric. Throughout this entire series, you've made it possible that I can work with all these teachers. So thank you, 150 of us in here right now. That's amazing. Thank you to Pam and Liza from Vaskell for making, I think we've had about 60 of these sessions altogether, and making them completely free for our educators here in Virginia. So thank you both for your generosity in that regard. And finally, thank you guys. So again, you took your time on a Tuesday morning in the summer to look at your practice and look at new instructional methods for getting content to our students, and that's amazing. So thank you. At this point, if we can, I would love to get feedback from you. So if you go to the link on slide 30, you can just click on it, or if you are still watching my screen, you can type in bit.ly/3E76XNX. I'm sure that's in the chat as well. And this is where you can provide me with feedback about how this session went for you, good, bad, whatever it might be. And this is also where you can request a renewal certificate. So on that form, there's a button, or the final question on the first page, do you want renewal? If you do, please make sure that you spell your name and your email address correctly. Otherwise, it may not get to you the right way. After you've done that, you're free to take off. If you have questions, I invite you, you can stick around for the next 5 minutes or so. And I'd love to talk through those questions that you have. Thank you all for joining me. And again, please do the feedback. If you're going in our next session, I'll see you again soon.
Could John or Eric pop the feedback form link in again? Somebody says it's not working. Thanks.
Any questions out there?